So, the next thing from Lama Yeshe, let's see if I can do it without my glasses. Hey. Live in harmony with one another and be an example of peace, love, compassion, and wisdom. I should have it memorized by now, but I could read it. So, okay, so we're on being an example of wisdom today, the last one. So here, when we're talking about wisdom, there's two basic kinds of wisdom. There's actually many kinds of wisdom, but two basic kinds. And one is involving the conventional truths, in specific how the functioning of the law of karma and its effects, and then the wisdom of the ultimate nature. Okay, and so when Lama is saying to be an example of wisdom, if we start out, the wisdom of cause and effect, that's the wisdom that helps us live in ethical conduct and to make good decisions in our life, instead of just being influenced by emotion or wrong views or whatever. Oh, I feel like doing this, and so I run off on an impulse and do something, and then later go, oh my God, what did I get myself into here? So this wisdom of conventional things is really very important for living a sane life, to be able to see that our words, our deeds, and our thoughts have influence, not only on our future lives, but also on this life and also on other people. Yeah. And so if we're aware of that, then when we, before we act, there's this automatic checking in our mind of what is my motivation? And is what I'm doing something in accord with ethical conduct, or is it against, what I've learned in the teachings that, what the Buddha has recommended us to do, to practice, and to avoid? And so that kind of wisdom that stops and pauses and thinks, is so important in our lives. And as you've heard me say many times, one of the inmates that I wrote to for many years, when he got a 20-year sentence he was a big drug dealer in L.A., and got a 20-year sentence when he was just in his, I think, early 30s. So that was a really big thing for him. And while he was in prison, he started tracing back, how did he get to the point where he was busted for being a big drug dealer? And he began to see that there were decisions all the way along his life. He called them suds, seemingly unimportant decisions, and how these things, when you don't think carefully, then one decision put him in another place where he had a range of decisions, which then he wasn't careful about, and he chose something else, and then it eventually led him. He had made a ton of money. He had decided to live abroad because he knew it was dangerous for him in the States. But then there was the opportunity to do one more big deal and really score a lot of money. And he thought he could do it, and that's when the other shoe dropped, and he wound up with a 20-year sentence. But I've also heard several of the guys I write to say that for them, coming to prison was a good thing because they might have been dead if they hadn't gone to prison. So this is all, in a thing of reminding us to slow down and not be so impulsive and really think about what the results are of what we're thinking, what we say, what we do. Yeah. And if we do that, I think we'll be a lot happier this lifetime, have much better relationships with people, and then we won't create so much, destructive karma. We'll create a lot of virtue. And then at the time of death, you know, you're not all tormented with a lot of regret and remorse. And so when Lama's saying being an example of that kind of wisdom, when we see people who make good decisions, yeah, and who keep ethical conduct, it impresses us, doesn't it? When you think of people and you watch how they live their lives and what they say and do and how they treat other people, and all of that has to do with this wisdom of karma and its effects, then, these people, there's something about them that we want to become, yeah, like them. So that's what the wisdom of, conventional wisdom having to do with karma. And then, the ultimate wisdom is what knows, actually the ultimate mode of existence and how things really exist. And as we develop that kind of wisdom, it helps us to not be so attached, not be so angry, not get so jealous and so arrogant and so on, because we come to see that the things that we place so much importance on don't exist the way they appear. And especially the self doesn't exist as an independent, inherently existent person as it appears to. And so therefore, who are we defending? Yeah? Who is there to defend? Yeah? So we don't need to get so defensive if people give us feedback that we don't like, because who is that about anyway? And similarly, when our mind gets quite jealous or greedy or whatever, when we can reflect and, who is this person who wants this or thinks they must have this so badly? And what is it that they're wanting or think they must have? What is it really? And then, you dissect it, and it's just maybe a bunch of atoms and molecules, or maybe it's just something, an idea that you learned that is simply, an idea society has, that society created, that we don't have to live by, society's definition of success and failure, for example. Okay? Because we see that things don't exist in the way they appear. And so that wisdom is quite liberating, on a day-to-day basis, and of course leading us to non-abiding nirvana. Yeah, so again, all of these come about through our own internal practice, not just through knowing words, but through really applying the teachings we hear to our lives, so that the teachings influence how we act and how we think and what we do.